Welcome to another installment of Pivots in the Pandemic, where we highlight businesses making promising pivots in the midst of the pandemic we're all going through today and also trying to learn something along the way. I'm Ryan Fire, and I'm joined as always by Johnny McKenna. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Ryan, what's up?
So this is our 10th week of hosting this live stream on Facebook, and it'll actually be our last episode, our series finale. That's right, we've covered many great businesses and many great topics, but I think we're all ready to move on. So with this being our series finale, I thought we could recap some of our favorite topics from the last 10 weeks, and we'll just go through those one by one and give you some of our last thoughts and advice and any highlights that are worth mentioning from those weeks. So if we go back all the way to week one, we actually did a webinar before we started this Pivots in the Pandemic called From Brick to Click, 10 ways to generate foot traffic, or 10 ways to generate sales when foot traffic decreases.
That's right.
Yeah, our message was on point for that one. But
right.
If we go back to week one of Pivots in the Pandemic, we talked about pivoting your operations to meet customer needs. And we highlighted two small businesses who are doing that. There was a bakery here in Grand Ledge called Aggie Mays, and Johnny talked about clothing manufacturer Addix, or brand, and how they had shifted their operations. Aggie Mays, they came out with an online store to a brick-to-click kind of model where you could order online and pick up curbside at their store. And they implemented that very quickly. I think it was like Monday the order came out that you couldn't have, or that restaurants had to shut down with the exception of carry out. And I think it was within like 24 hours they had that store up. They didn't have that before. So that was just a huge pivot in their operations to do that. And it's something that we all have to think about how we're going to pivot our operations. I think we all realize that large gatherings and crowds and packed stores are going to be kind of limited for a while. And so how do we pivot our operations to make sure that we're meeting our customer needs? The highlight from that episode for me was just how quickly that Aggie Mays was able to implement that new system and get it online, and the way that they continued to communicate with their customers using their Facebook page. And I thought they did a really good job with that. Johnny, do you have any thoughts on that week one episode we had? Any highlights?
Yeah, I would agree. Just the speed at which people did those things on the first week, and especially Aggie Mays, I'm sure that only benefited them to just getting something done right away. What's crazy is we're 10 weeks out at this point from when we covered them, and just to see how that benefited them, but also the uncertainty that none of us knew that we'd be. I feel like, for myself at that time, I was thinking oh man, a month or so of this and things should start looking normal again. And obviously that's not the case. Things are going to look different for a very long time. And the speed at which they pivoted, both Addix and Aggie Mays, man, great move, super cool. Yeah. As a bummer, as big of a bummer as it is to be in the place we're in right now, and normal being a very distant thing, I think it was just a really savvy business move on their part, and how quickly they changed things around.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to week two, this was really our brick to click episode where we talked about two businesses who implemented an order online pickup in store at curb. That was Argus Farm Stop and Gordon Food Stores. Gordon's, before the pandemic hit, didn't have a way to order online and pick up curbside. You could pick up in the store, but curbside was kind of a new thing for them. And that also meant changing the way that they accepted payments and stuff like that. So kind of a big operational change, as well as just a new model for them. And then Johnny, you talked about Argus Farm Stop and how they kind of implemented the same thing. Just a good pivot. I think it's a pivot we're going to see more of from retail, as well as grocery, food, cafes, the local businesses, where rather than just people going in and shopping and doing the transaction, it's going to be an order online and probably picking up at the store, just to cut down on people in the store. The good thing is that there are so many tools and options out there to help you implement this, especially if you have a newer point of sale system like Square or Toast. it's pretty easy to add an online component. You can even do it with e-commerce systems like Shopify, and I think Shopify has a point of sale system too that it would integrate with. So it's becoming easier to do, which is great. You think about 10 years ago, this kind of stuff was like you're hiring a software company and building something from scratch, and you're tens of thousands of dollars into a solution. But now you can do it for a relatively small transaction fee or monthly fee. So those were good pivots. Something I think we're going to see more of. Johnny, your thoughts?
Yep. Yeah, I feel like, and I think we mentioned this in this episode specifically, but this was probably something that a lot of customers kind of liked the idea of anyways, or maybe it was available already in some ways, but now has become way more utilized and used. And I know for myself, now that I've used this when I've just done a call ahead, and obviously the pandemic is kind of forcing me to do so and think that way, oh my goodness, so much easier, so much nicer than like going there, getting there, either shopping or getting in line and waiting. I know I've done my part. All I have to do is pull up and wait. And man, for me, that my experience has gotten even better with so many stores because I'm using less time to do those things. And then alongside of like delivery services and things like that, has just really changed the way that commerce has happened. In both positive ways and some tough ways too, or hard ways. But overall, I think this pivot has done probably a lot of great things for stores and for restaurants and for places of business, because it's all streamlined into an online. We have orders coming in, we're ready to go. Versus, just all of a sudden a huge rush. You may get a rush of orders, but you're able to just stay wherever you're at and just fulfill orders versus having to do it more customer service. Now it's more on the fulfilling order side, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah, and transitioning to week 3, we talked about advertising in the midst of a pandemic, which is a relatively new thing. I don't think any company's really done that before. And I think kind of the general learning from that is advertising when sales soften. And, pandemic related sales softness or marketing conditions or something like that. Should you cut advertising? Should you stop advertising? And we highlighted 2 businesses, Eliff Brothers, which is a local business here in the Lansing area, and then Hotels.com, which is more of a global business, who they were still advertising even though nobody wanted to travel or book a hotel. In fact, they were encouraging people not to in their ad. But I think the balance is, if sales soften, should you cut advertising, cut back on advertising, or cut it out all the way? I think that's what a lot of businesses do, is like that's the first thing to get cut, because advertising is seen as this luxury item. Like, okay, if sales are really good and we got this extra money, we'll pour some money into advertising. And I think the reason that it usually gets cut or whatever is because bad advertising or bad marketing, or even think of some of the more traditional advertising where you would spend all this money on a billboard or on a paper or an ad in the paper or television or whatever, and you don't know what it did for you. You just spent thousands of dollars on this, ad. You spent $10,000 on a quarter-page ad in a magazine, and you have no idea if it had any impact on your sales. So I think the question is Netflix working? Because it obviously isn't. That my daughter came in here and interrupted me in the middle of the spiel. But I'll let you take over your thoughts, Johnny, while I deal with this emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with advertising. I think advertising is always a good thing to be doing, and no matter what the climate, it's worth making sure you're front of mind in your customers, and they know that you're out there and ready to do business.
Yeah, and if you have advertising like digital advertising, you can measure from end to end what this does for you, what the investment does for you, and so I think it's a little bit easier to say no, we're not going to cut back.
Right. And then week 4, we highlighted email marketing, which was super cool just to see. We highlighted EcoBuns and the Mitten State and just the campaigns and the advertising they were doing. Obviously, we know that email marketing is super effective. a lot of people are going to be opening their emails, but also it's either free or crazy cheap to be doing, and just staying in front of your customers. Another form of advertising that is super affordable, and also just direct to your consumers, direct to people that have shopped with you before or expressed interest. So I thought that week was super helpful and a good reminder of, what are you doing to grow your list, and how are you communicating with the people on your list? Ryan, email marketing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an older medium in terms of some of the other things that we talked about, like social media, but it's one of those things that, like, it's a relatively low investment and potentially high return if you do it right. So it's just one of those things that if you haven't spent time thinking through a strategy for email marketing, spend some time doing that. So yeah, that's week 4. Week 5, we talked about e-commerce. Highlighted Madcap Coffee out in Grand Rapids and Bondi Salon out in Holland, Michigan, and how they had created an e-commerce store and shifted some of their business to online sales. And again, I think this is something we're going to see more of. We have seen more of this just in the last 8 weeks. When you look at the penetration and percentage of sales being made online versus in store, it's just massive what's happened over the last 8 weeks. And it's going to be an important part of most businesses, is having some type of e-commerce solution or way of selling and fulfilling online. Johnny, any thoughts?
Yeah. Like you had mentioned, Ryan, e-commerce, if you didn't have a plan before this, you were either forced into getting one right now, or you're suffering at this point. So if you're not currently don't have a strategy in place, you're not looking to do that, I think you're only going to begin you're only going to continue to feel that as things continue throughout this year, with not having an e-commerce platform. So if you don't have one of those, we highly recommend jumping on that in some way, in some form. Even Bondi Salon, being a salon that can't do haircuts right now and still won't be able to for a while in the state of Michigan, they can at least bring in something through an online store.
Yeah, so that was week 5, e-commerce. Week 6, talked about social media, and we actually highlighted 2 zoos, Potter Park Zoo in Lansing, John Ball Zoo in Grand Rapids, and then Vallejo Training, which is a fitness training business on the west side of the state of Michigan, and just how to utilize social media in the midst of a pandemic to continue to capture the attention of your customers, to continue to serve them, and to continue to keep your brand top of mind. We saw some great examples of new series and new virtual experiences with the zoos, and same thing with Vallejo. But social media is going to continue to be a part of our lives and businesses for the foreseeable future. As much as people want to shut them down because they censor you, it's still going to be a part of our lives and our business. Johnny, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, check out facebook.com/firemarketing for another business that's utilizing that reasonably well. So, yeah.
Week 7, SEO or search engine optimization was the topic. We highlighted a business that was not related to that Plato's Closet. It was more on the e-commerce side. But SEO, again, this is where 90+% of people are beginning their buying process. They're going to a search engine, looking for something to fix their problem, or looking for a particular product or service. And if your website is not optimized for search engines, you're going to get lost, and you're going to miss out on this potential free traffic. So we talked a little bit about some things that you can do to optimize your website. Make sure that you show up in search. Johnny, any thoughts on week 7?
Yeah, still waiting for Plato's Closet to give us that sponsorship. Still trying to see if they're interested, but still waiting on that email. I'm beginning to lose hope.
Yeah,
but that's all right.
Hey, you never know. Maybe the finale will put them over the edge.
I can only hope so.
We're still trying to get Nike too, but that one hasn't come through yet either.
Yeah.
Week 8, we talked about local business and some of the things that only local businesses can really execute well, and we highlighted the Hive Dance Studio in where I live in Grand Ledge, Michigan, and how they had created this product that was essentially kind of a mixed experience, where it was a digital class, or like a Zoom meeting kind of class, but they also had a physical element where they would physically drop something off at your house in the morning, of this camp that they were running. It was like a 3-day camp, and every morning they would drop off a new package off at your house, and it would relate to what you're going to be doing in the digital experience later in the day. And that was a cool pivot, kind of a mixture of this online offline experience and something that really only a local business could execute well, a community-based business like that, to be able to do that well. Johnny, any thoughts on week 8 local business?
Yeah, I can only hope that so many of our favorite places continue to weather the storm that this is, and make it through to the other side of everything, and hopefully, utilizing some of these topics we covered previously to help keep them in a good place overall, which really leads us into week 9: community, collaboration, supporting each other, the 3 C's of marketing, as we discussed.
Yep.
And just cool that we highlighted Ambrose just doing a cool thing with shirts and support. If you purchase one of the shirts, it could 50% would support either the shirt that was printed on there, or you could choose the general shirt that supported all the businesses. So really cool about just helping each other out in some way. A lot of times we can think competitively instead of collaboratively, and I think that's a super important thing to remember as we continue on down this path, down the pandemic, and figuring things out as we go. We need each other in some way and supporting each other in some way.
Yeah, we really rewrote some of the marketing textbooks that they're going to be using for MBA programs by introducing the 3 C's of marketing as opposed to the 4 P's, which are really outdated. So that was good. We also highlighted a new feature that Facebook rolled out called Facebook Shops, where essentially you can have an e-commerce experience directly on your Facebook page, and it's the entire experience. It's the product pages, the cart, the checkout, the whole experience right on Facebook, and it integrates with some other software and stuff like that. But that's new from Facebook, kind of their pivot and their transition into the e-commerce space probably has a lot of e-commerce providers feeling a little bit worried, but that's a pivot that they made, and it's going to help businesses to be able to continue to sell online and do some of the things that we've been talking about the last 10 weeks, and bringing your business online and having some type of digital component. And that's really something that's becoming crystal clear over the past 8 weeks, 2 months, however long it's been, is that every business is going to need a digital component to their business over the next couple of years. Or if you already have something, you're going to have to accelerate and amplify your digital efforts. And it's not just to thrive, but to survive. One statistic I thought is really interesting is in 2009, so about 11 years ago now, online sales made up 5.6% of total retail sales. And then over year by year, it's steadily increased. And then last year, so over a 10-year period, it was at 16%. So it's about a 10% increase in penetration over the course of 10 years. But in just the last 8 weeks, it's jumped to 27%. So that's 11% increase in just 8 weeks as compared to 10% over 10 years. So just this huge change and shift in the way that people are buying things. And I don't think it's going to slow down or go away. I think it's going to continue to grow. Like even as we start going out into stores in person and stuff like that, I think that people are feeling the comfort and the ease of doing business online, and so that's going to continue to grow and be a part of the way that we do sales in the future. And it's going to be more and more important to business survival over the next couple of years. So our advice to you as a small business is figure out how to make your pivot to digital if you haven't already. And if you have, figure out how to amplify it. So think about marketing sales. Are you using all the tools that are at your disposal? We talked about email marketing. Do you have an automated lead nurturing campaign that's going to generate business for you while you sleep? Are you getting the most out of social media? Are you doing live streaming? Are you going to set up your Facebook shop? Are you making sure all your channels are up to date and that you're interacting with your customers on a regular basis? About digital advertising, are you considering paid search or display ads or social ads to help increase sales and increase awareness for your brand, and doing it in a way that is measurable and that you can use any budget to get started, and you know exactly what your money's doing for you? Or what about e-commerce? Is there an aspect of your sales or distribution that can be done online versus in person or over the email or over the phone or Facebook messages or whatever it is? Is there a way that you can capture sales online with an e-commerce environment? And then are you spending time on SEO? We talked about search engine optimization. 90% of consumers go there to begin the buying process. Are you spending any time on SEO with your website to make sure that you're capturing some of those potential sales? People who have high intent, they're ready to buy, they're primed, they're already starting down the marketing funnel. They don't have to be made aware of the problem, then made aware of the products and the brands and so on and so forth. They already know they have a problem. They already know they want a product or service. They're just looking to convert. And are you capturing that? What about your products? Are there digital products you could be offering? And again, we talked about e-commerce. Are there physical products you could sell online? But are there digital products that you could create, like a course or an online program, or an online fitness boot camp that's all digital, or software, or even a digital physical hybrid like we talked about in week 8 with the Hive Dance Studio, where it's a digital experience with a physical aspect. What about your operations, brick to click, or processing credit cards online, all those things? Are you able to make a pivot into digital with your sales, your marketing, your products, your operations, or any part of your business to help you survive over the next couple of years? Johnny, any thoughts from you before we close on our final series finale?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's just as people are wanting a sense of normalcy, we may see a spike in just physical sales for a minute, but that it's not, the digital isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
So if there's any way that you can just put any kind of energy or effort into what that looks like for your business, for your employees, if I think we'll see a lot of stores even hiring more people that are doing digitally focused things for their business, whether it be just someone that's the liaison between them and a marketing company, or someone that's actually like their task, instead of being on the floor to do sales with a person, is to be managing their online marketing or sales or orders, whatever it may be. So we hopefully this series was super helpful for you, or at least sparked some sort of excitement, or just did something to impress upon you the importance of you can't just be passive about this stuff anymore, because a potential fourth of your business, a whole quarter of your business now can be done online. And if you can survive cutting that out, then go for it. Good for you. That's great. But if you either want to add another quarter to your business or not see that part go away or grow it, now you should definitely be looking into these topics that we discussed and how you can just continue to make improvements along the way. It doesn't have to be all done at once. It doesn't have to be masterfully created and done all at once. We saw in a lot of our websites and a lot of people that were pivoting, it wasn't perfect, but it was a step. And just keep taking that step, keep taking that momentum that we have right now, and move forward just for the betterment of your business and the betterment of your employees and the betterment of just the community you're in.
Yeah. Thanks, Johnny. And thank you for joining us for our series finale of Pivots in the Pandemic, where we've highlighted promising pivots made by businesses in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. I'm Ryan Fire, joined by Johnny McKenna, and we wish you guys the best of luck in your business, and have a good one.